What's up, guys? How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Hey, Joe.
Hey,
Good, good.
good. All good. Awesome. I haven't seen you guys for a bit, so yeah, nice to run into you again here. But for people who don't know who you are, do you want to give a quick intro, maybe starting with Ricky?
I'm the CTO and look after products at Streamkap. Um, I've been doing this for years now, and before that, just generally sort of DevOps and streaming architectures.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, and Paul Dudley. I'm co-founder and CEO at Streamkap. So actually, Ricky and I have been working together in different data companies for the past 6 years now. But before that, I spent a long time in sort of analytics, SaaS analytics companies. So
Nice. Did you guys meet in the UK?
we did, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I worked for Ricky at his startup. So
Oh, nice. I think that's
yeah,
where I met you too, Paul. We were many years ago.
yeah,
In Jolly London, I think. So it's good to see all you guys. So so kind of fast forward from the time we met, that was in 2022 or something like that. But the world's changed, I would say, a bit since
yeah.
then. What's been top of mind for you guys these days?
Yeah, it's funny. When we met, we were talking about real-time data, and you were telling me a bit about some of the experience you had with different companies like Imply and others that are out there, and databases, I guess, in particular. And we Streamkap is streaming data platform, streaming ETL, change data capture. Um, and obviously, there's been a lot happening in that space with Confluent being acquired, or I guess planned to be acquired by IBM. So yeah, it's we're kind of watching that space, but then everybody's talking about AI as well, of course, and I think one of the things that we're starting to see more of, and I think we'll see a lot more of in 26 is agents that will need real time context, and I think streaming is a big part of that, which is I think what the stated reason, one of the big reasons why IBM said that they bought Confluent was streaming to power AI and agents, what have you.
What about you, Ricky? What's been on your mind?
Um, there's a few things really, but obviously sort of echoes some sort of stuff that Paul's saying, but also just the AI progress in this last month. It just seems pretty crazy. So just sort of makes you think about the velocity of development that can come out now. Obviously, it needs testing and so on, but
Mm-hmm.
there's just a lot of discussion internally about more we can do and how we do it and stuff like this. It's quite strange times.
Has
Yeah,
AI changed how you guys work?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely. I mean, basically, Opus and so on is is amazing, and whereas maybe 20% by AI was doable with code fixing and so on, that number's just jumped a lot. So there's projects that we wanted to do or are doing that we can now just accelerate quite rapidly and be a bit more ambitious about it. Um, Streaming's complex, right? Like, not to say it can't solve these things, but it's complex. There's a lot of edge cases and how the customers work with it and so on. And we're definitely mission critical for our customers usually, so we have to be really careful. But there's just a lot of UI, API work, all these sort of things, especially that can just be sort of sped through very quickly. So yeah,
yeah. I've
make us
definitely
think very
seen
different.
Ricky is like sharing stuff with me that he's building, and yeah, the UI stuff has been moving a lot faster. I'm not an engineer by training, but I vibe coded an app last weekend that
Ooh.
uh, I was kind of curious in my backyard. Like, I was like, I'm pretty sure the south fence in my yard shades the yard all year round. Like, there's a small area that never gets sun. And I was like, it's kind of, I'm not sure about that though. And so I just like used like Gemini AI Studio and said, hey, build me an app that like models the sun at my latitude and longitude. And yeah, it worked. I never looked at the code once, and I had to iterate, but like in like half an hour, built an app that works, and that's a good example of something that I don't think is super useful in general, but it's like works for me. And like, I was able to just build it and test it out. I did actually end up publishing it because I was like, just to
I saw
carry
your
it on.
LinkedIn post about it. You're quite stoked. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I never would have thought about that. That's good. It's kind of a bespoke case for what you're doing there. I think that
Yeah.
same day, I don't know if it was Sunday or whatever, I also did something like we had a survey for the practical data community that just closed, and we got over 1,100 responses, which is pretty good for a first time community survey. And so I was like, oh, let's go analyze the data. So I throw it into Opus. I'm like, have at it. What do you think? And did a good job. Went through and verified the data. It got it right. And then I'm like, okay, why don't you just go write a report while you're at it? And then why don't we make a tool that'll just analyze this data and then throw it on the web in DuckDB Wasm so anyone can analyze it? And it did that too. I'm like, crap, this is pure magic. Like that would have taken weeks to go through, and it did it in all of that in like an hour.
Yeah, no, it's really crazy. So I'm the meme that's on Twitter, basically like the product manager submitted his 56 PR to the dev team. So I've been rebuilding our app quite rapidly. Kicked off loads of projects as well. So we're like, okay, look, we can do so much more. But yeah, no, it's good. It's but it gives you a lot to think about, because I think there's gonna be a lot of change this year. So
for sure. But you mentioned some edge cases where streaming still there's enough there where maybe AI needs a bit of handholding, or you need to handhold the AI. But like, what are some of those edge cases you're talking about?
it's usually just handling customers' data, actually. So documentation on streaming is pretty good, right? And so AI can read the documentation and build it. But for us, it's around the stability aspect, which might sound a bit vague, but there's recovery, there's just logic in there, handling the dead letter queues, within dead messages that aren't streaming. Customers' data is often in a complete state, oversized messages. There's just a whole array of stuff. And it's also the business logic that comes with it. So we're doing a lot of transformation work, real-time transformation work, and let's just try and make sure that works consistently with data we might not have even seen yet, as well. So it's just a lot around that. And then there's things like snapshotting. A standard snapshot can be single threaded and so on. And then there's just ways of scaling that up to can you import a terabyte of data in a matter of hours, for example. It's just there's ways of scaling that up, Kubernetes at the same time, and so on and so on. So it's not just always code; it can be DevOps related as well. And then we just have to be really careful, because people rely on us for sub-second data.
Got it.
Yeah.
How has the landscape of running a SaaS company changed now that you can practically build anything you want with AI?
It's interesting. I think like we haven't like been out fundraising like in the past year or so. It's a little. I think that's probably the area that's changed the most, that I hear about, I guess. I guess I don't know it directly, but like that's what you see on Twitter. It's like, there's a lot of people talking about like traditional SaaS companies are sort of doomed because you could just vibe code it, and you see the occasional thing like, oh, I built DocuSign in a day or whatever. And I don't know. I think I'm not sure that's going to be the case, because I think we're starting to see that like, and this is maybe not necessarily good for data per se, but like starting to see that SaaS companies are building the walled, building stronger, taller walls around the walled garden, right? Because they see that like the data, Salesforce being a great example, they know that like the data that they hold is actually their differentiator, right? Like building a CRM functionality is not super hard, but having access to that proprietary data and being the underpinning for that agent workflow is super important. So I think well-established SaaS players are probably gonna try and circle the wagons around their data that they own, and make it harder and or more expensive to get that data out, because if they don't have control over it anymore, then they have to start, providing a lot less value for their customers, and they have less of an opportunity to sell them their AI.
Yeah. That's funny. Right before we hit record on this, we had my friend Shelby. She's she has AI research on the small language models at Salesforce. So it was interesting getting their her perspective on it, where it is a data play for sure. It's and just data is messy, as you point out, Ricky. So it's just it seems to be the problem. I was actually just reading an article in the Information about how even OpenAI, like they're really stoked on their shopping agents, and then they come to find out, lo and behold, data is really messy, and the agents don't really work that well. I know it's shocking, but so they're running into that issue now, and having to fix it.
Yeah, one of my experiments that I did with AI last year was like in October. I was doing my investor update. I was like, let me just see like how Gemini does at this, right? And I like gave it all the input data that it needed and historical updates, and it did like an amazing job in October. And so I made some edits and checked the numbers, of course, but like it was actually right, and I was like super impressed. And so I was like, this is incredible. And then in November I did it again, and it was just wrong. And so I went from like this high of like, oh, it's so impressive, to like, oh, I really I had to, this one I got to write myself. And it's like, it wasn't clear, like nothing changed about like the way things were formatted or anything like that. There was no obvious reason to me why it would be unable to do the same thing again, and it just wasn't. And so that it comes back to, I guess, the challenge that a lot of folks have is like, it's really cool demo, but sometimes the real reliable stuff is where it gets tough.
Yeah, true. It's kind of like you get lucky with the model being in the right mood or something, and it's like, yeah, I'll do it for you for
today.
Tomorrow, who knows? So, that's really interesting. What do you guys think is going to happen this year? You're kind of alluding to this year should be interesting, but I'm curious what you think.
I don't know. I'm just thinking about it a lot. I think a lot of people are feeling pretty anxious about it. I think I'm confident, like we're at this time in our lives, like as well, like it's all good and it's exciting. But I know a lot of devs who are worried, and a lot of good devs are all thinking they're going to be fine. But there's also the aspect of, it's been a long time learning to develop, right? It's just weird to have that skill sort of being caught up with, I think. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. My feeling is that velocity is going to increase everywhere, and we won't be seeing the job cuts per se, because I think there'll be a lot of just fixing all the bugs and getting through the workloads. So I just think velocity is just going to increase dramatically. Then everything's going to be stuck in testing. Maybe more bugs come out if there's not adequate testing. But I'm just guessing that towards the end of the year, there's like, okay, we've done our roadmap in a tenth of the time, for example, and then I don't know, maybe there's questions then on costs and what do we do about this and so on. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's just really unsure. I just don't know. I think there's like the B2B software companies, there's e-commerce, there's all these other types. Like, I don't think it's known how they're going to come out of this in the next 2 years, 3 years, if that makes sense.
I don't think anyone did. I was having a conversation with this with Zach Wilson about this the other day. Where it's kind of like, this AI coding tools are making, according to some surveys at least, more productive. Some surveys say that's less productive. But let's take the makes you more productive argument. And so it poses an interesting question for hiring. Because I think if the agents, the AI can just wholesale replace a person, then of course you don't need people. But if you're getting 50% more productivity out of somebody, and you want to, and you have things to solve in your business, I would be like, well, wouldn't you actually want to increase that velocity and actually get more people? It's because you can do more things. But
yeah,
I think as you point out, it's uncertain because you don't know what that looks like. And I think the short-term response is, well, let's just cut people because we don't need them. So
yeah, I think it all depends on the type of people, right? So I mean, you definitely need more testers because you can't rely on AI testing only. So you need more manual testers, even if you can put more automated testing in, because I think there's that. Product managers and business analysts, these are the people can do more prototypes and tweaking. you definitely need the engineers still to make sure it's even built properly in the first place and so on, as well as all the validation. And, I think the shift is we do more planning research rather than coding. So coding becomes 5% of the work or 10% compared to 90%. And, you spend more time going back and forth as a team. How should we build this? Knowing we can build it across the weekend, at least to the first version. And so I think that's what's going to happen. It's just a bit more planning and research and collaboration to make sure it's built properly. But I guess I'm thinking more, and you're right, you want to bring on more engineers, but I think people are nervous about spending, not in the AI world, clearly, because there's so much money everywhere. But I think in the rest of the world, who wants to spend more money especially in what's seen as sometimes expensive tech people, let's say e-commerce or something like this. And how is e-commerce and other things like this going to change this year? Might be quite dramatic. I don't know. Might be the same. It might be, we all just use Gemini and Google Ads in chat, right? Like it's the same thing. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it seems to me that and this is obvious in the numbers, that the real impact has been on like early career folks. And because I think you're right that people are not, like, companies are generally not like laying people off. I mean, there was some of that positioning, but I'm skeptical of that. Like the bigger companies laying people off, I think that was more like overhang from 2021 over hiring, and then they just had a new, better excuse for what for
it's a cooler sounding excuse versus
we
messed up and we're hiring.
Yeah, exactly. Like in 2022, you just had to like say you're getting the ship tightened up or whatever, right? And that was what the market wanted to see. And then you just all of a sudden you have a better, I say better is the wrong word, an excuse that the market likes a lot more, and as you say, a cooler sounding excuse. But it is, I think, a real challenge. Like, for you see it in the new grad unemployment rates are super high, and
scary.
And yeah, it's interesting because I think if you think about like one thing that strikes me about that is that like sort of traditionally, the new generations are at the cutting edge of some new technology thing and therefore able to capitalize on it. But it seems, at least to date, that has not been the case. And maybe like it's the folks who are graduating from college really got a raw deal because they like had COVID plus like, COVID for their end of high school and, half their college. And then they're graduating into like this uncertainty of the AI world, but they're not.
And interest rates are higher and everything else.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
They also like maybe the folks who are in high school now are young enough that like a lot of their learning is centered around it in a way that maybe folks who are new grads.
I look at my 15-year-old son who's in high school right now. He's a freshman, and it's interesting. He'll use AI to proofread essays and stuff and whatever. But I think it's, I wrote about this. Him and his friends, actually, it's interesting because they look at white collar work and they look at what's happening. They're like, why would we want to go to college to do that? That seems really stupid. They're looking at other things entirely. Skilled trades, starting companies, and I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, just being.
I think that's the thing is that I think senior engineers are definitely going to be okay. I mean, there's especially if the economies are growing, right? There's going to be more work with AI, with robotic, and whatever, right? But I think you're right. It's challenging for younger people. My son's 16 as well, and he wants to go into AI and psychology, and that's probably quite a good angle. But it's going to be unbelievably competitive. And he's been learning Python at home, and so he's like, you might as well just stop. I'm joking because there is value to it, but there's this ethic of you definitely need to understand it, and that will have real skill. But sitting there learning and trying to build an application definitely has merit, but I'm not sure that's where you put your time. Yeah, so, very very odd times.
How do you think it changes? Kind of taking back to the vertical that you guys are in. Like, what do you think happens to technologies in your vertical, for example? Like, what do you think the next evolution is of streaming, change data capture?
Yeah,
those sorts of things.
I think like our view on it is ultimately like I like to use our company as kind of a toy example of like what is happening and what will happen with AI, and like putting aside our we already talked about our developers are using it obviously, but let's just say like from a customer support perspective, today you can chat with our docs via AI. that's trivially easy for anybody to do at a production grade, right? You've got like publicly available context that you want to feed into a model and, be able to answer people's questions, and it's useful, but it's not, game changing, right? It's just like a better way to access the docs essentially. And like, the next layer up from that is, which I think you can do in production today and people are doing, is, get all the context for your historical conversations with that customer and have that in the context for their chat experience as well. And then they get better chat support experience. But really, like, if our engineers are debugging a problem for a customer, they're looking at the logs and what just happened, right? And that's really, critical for like even a good chat experience, but particularly for agents, right? Where you have an automated system that is trying to take action. Like, it has to know what's happening right now. I mean, not every agent, but like certainly in the context of like a support agent, like it just isn't going to work if it doesn't know what's happening in the world. So I think what we'll see is like this evolution where, there was a time when like kind of real-time data was, just in the world of, let's say telco operations and, bank transactions and things like that. And then, it moved into like, okay, we're going to use streaming for our microservices architecture. And you're using it where a machine is consuming that data. And I think ultimately what we'll see is with agents, you all of a sudden have just a huge expansion in the number of automated systems that are able to and need to consume data. And so you'll just see a lot more demand for real-time streaming data.
What do you think, Ricky?
Yeah, I agree with that. The way we think about it is like, for example, at the moment we've been helping move data, from a source to a destination or multi-destination, and then we've been doing sort of transformations in the pipeline. But I think multi-destination continues, right? But that might not be data stores; they could be agents. There's also the agent-to-agent communication, which has to sit somewhere and has to get faster and faster. Like, there will be benefits of agents on a backbone in real time. Those agents will need a whole bunch of context. They can get that from a database. They can reach out to MCPs and so on, or can they get it from one place? These are the sort of things that we're thinking about. Paul makes a good comment to me earlier, which was real time. People always said we don't need real time. Customer-facing apps sometimes need real time, but there's been a lot of argument. Oh, I'm okay with my data loading every 30 seconds. Well, that's fine if you're talking about dashboards. But when you're talking about agent communication, that's not necessarily the case. Right? Why wouldn't you go sub-second in a lot of the applications? And so I think real time just becomes more important. There's also the aspect of the traditional work that's been done in real time, like let's say the enterprise decision management, like loan book decisions or fraud detection, these sort of things. They are solved in the enterprise, and you can solve them now, but you can solve it better potentially with agents that has more information available, and again then trigger flows and human in the loop type decisions and stuff like this. So I think for streaming, it's only going to increase, but the consumers are more likely to be the agents, obviously, and then agent-to-agent communication. And it does seem like we're going to see an explosion of those. It's still early days, right? Most people haven't even got out of a pilot yet. But at least our customers are talking about building it. As in, some are on agents already, but a lot of people are just trying to get their data in shape, to create these schemas and context for the agents to work with as well.
So, what are some ways that you've seen companies trying to get their data in shape for agents?
Well, at the moment, we see them just put them into a database. And so we see them talking about putting that data into Snowflake and ClickHouse and getting into a certain schema to be able to use it. So it's still early days, but that's what they're trying to do. Yeah. And so they can run better decision management of it. I haven't seen many really building human in the loop type aspects of this. So at the moment, I just see them trying to get more data in one place for the agent to run. So I think it will still be slowish in terms of how that data's got in there and then how it's being interacted with, but there'll be more to it. So yeah, so more intelligent agent, a bit like a human, has access to various data sources that wasn't possible before. So that's what I'm seeing. Paul, anything to add to that?
I think that captures mostly what we're seeing. I mean, obviously there's a bit more discussion in the past year about like semantic layers and ontologies and things like that. But I think in practice, we haven't seen as much of that into production, let's say. So
Yeah,
We're seeing
I'm
workloads being
curious.
moved, aren't we? Sorry, I was going to say we're seeing workloads being moved. So what we're seeing is where people have written internal microservices or just they're doing a lot of work in the app, they're moving that out into the pipeline and then trying to use that to multi-destination, whether it's for a data warehouse, operational store, or operational decision management or agents. So definitely people are mobilizing their data, trying to put it into the right shape. And it's not for building dashboards, right?
You mentioned something interesting too, and I sort of want to noodle on this. So agents, um, how much of it do you think is going to be like pure streaming data versus something more like pub sub, where we're just sending messages to an agent, like "Yo, go do this thing over here" or something? Because this is sort of the classic dichotomy in messaging versus streaming right now. Like, where do you think that goes?
I think it's going to be a combination. I think ultimately, I'm not an expert in this area by any stretch, but when we think about when we think about the future of our area, it's workflows, right? It's not, I want to put it into a dashboard. That will still sit in the database. It's got to be, I need fresh data. I'm going to make a decision on it. I'm going to trigger some workflows. And there's a whole bunch of things there, right? Like there's getting context, there's potentially doing real-time transformations, there's human in the loop, there's sending off messages for something to happen, like a pub sub, but that could be an agent at the other end. It could be, a simple update. I don't know. It could be another agent on the other end. So I think that is just going to be very complex. And I think that infrastructure is not really well established as to how it will end up. And I think that's what we know. This is what the sort of stuff we're talking about all the time. Well, how do hundreds of agents just all talk to each other? There's also this concept of thundering herd, right? What happens when it starts going wrong? It all starts cascading and so on. So there's just a lot to think about there. So I think you'll have a combination of writing into the streaming layer, reading out, RAG queries, pub sub. I think that all of that kind of needs to be happen.
What's interesting about today, and it's something I was giving talks on, throughout the fall, was it feels like we're in this once in a lifetime opportunity to reinvent the way we've been doing things, and to maybe cast off whatever legacy patterns that, when you started your company, right? It was kind of like you have to probably fit into this category of doing change data capture for systems of record to analytics. It's just like, that's what you do. But now it feels like, what I'm reading between the lines with what we're talking about is there's this whole new world that's not been built yet. How much are you guys thinking about, for Streamkap, how are we going to go out there and maybe define an entirely new space instead of playing in these kind of red oceans, so to speak?
it's a really good question because we spent a lot of time talking about that today. I mean, it's difficult because I think thinking about it even just from the buyer's perspective, like I think a lot of obviously like most companies, let's say today, are investing in AI in some way or another, but I think one of the challenges has been uncertainty about what is the right architecture to invest in. Like, do you want to shift your existing architecture to something brand new? And things have moved so fast that it seems to me that people are mostly like today, like the larger organizations, investing in things that are pretty easy to do, like buying applications or things that run on top of their existing Snowflake or Databricks or what have you. And those are things that they have a short time to value. Maybe not the most ambitious projects, but something that you can feel comfortable that like if the whole landscape shifts in 6 months that you haven't like run down the wrong road. But ultimately, like our, kind of building on what Ricky was saying, like, our feeling is that you're going to need a backbone that can power this stuff, and that, that kind of streaming is a good opportunity, in combination with object storage, and you can hold the context both for the historical and the fresh data, and give folks access to to the context that they need for, whatever workflows they're running. So, I mean, at a very high level, that's how we're thinking about it. But it's a big bet, right? To be able to go out and say to the market, like, this is, how you're going to do this, and and convince them that that you're right. So, that's kind of a big question for us as we head into this year, and I think have some exciting stuff coming along those lines. But at the same time, like, a lot of our customers come to us because they do want CDC, and that's a good place for folks to start. But I think we'll have more to build on and beyond that for sure.
Yeah, it was even an interesting combo. I was on George Fraser was on a panel that I was on, and it was interesting. So that's a similar question, to him. Like, it's like, how are you moving in a space when, somebody can basically just vibe code, not what you do, but this the piece they need of what you do, which is kind of the same thing. So, like, how do you move ahead in that situation? And he's like, yeah, I think about that every night. It's just, I don't know. It's a question in everybody's head right now. If you're running a tech company, is like, what direction do you go next?
Yeah, I think, it speaks a little bit to what Ricky was saying about velocity earlier, right? Is like, you ultimately have to leverage that, right? If it's I think our experience has been that, like, the deeper into our stack, it isn't something that it's as easy to vibe code, and because it's business critical, it's probably the area that you would last do that, but certainly have no illusions about the fact that at some point, it will get easy to do. So that just means you have to keep, staying out in front and, anticipating where things are going to go as much as you can, and, delivering something that's valuable enough that people don't want to deal with managing something that they vibe coded to do it. But, so I think velocity certainly is a key component. I think it is interesting because, like, in the batch ETL space, right? Like, there's been, folks nipping at Fivetran's heels for a while, and, various attempts to enable folks to, to build their own stuff, which I think has gotten better, right? Like, you can vibe code a HubSpot connector much more easily now than you could have before. And if that's all you need, that might be enough. But I don't know. There's also other stuff that comes with that, right? Like observability and, all of the stuff that, if you're going to run something in production, just is very different than, like, getting a little demo together.
Like a shadow app or something.
Yeah, shadow app is very easy, and, like, but there's a bunch of stuff that isn't in my shadow app that would need to be there for it to be something that somebody would pay for.
Actually, it might be an interesting business model. Actually, is just to all these vibe coded apps need streaming. So,
yeah, that is something that we're looking at as well. It's like, okay, we support Supabase as a as a source, for example, and Neon, and these kind of serverless Postgres. So I think as you get to a place where you're kind of, to date, like, one of the patterns that we see in our business is, like, as companies grow out of being able to just do everything on Postgres, and they start to need a separate analytical data store, or they start to need to do some other additional processing on that data, low latency that Postgres is not a good fit for. That's when they kind of start to look at at Streamkap and generally at, moving data around. And I think we're going to see more of that as some of these companies graduate. So it's another thing is, like, think about from a go-to-market perspective, like, how do you get in front of those people, and be a part of that ecosystem is another focus. So.
Well, you checked the first box. You're in San Francisco, so that helps.
Yeah.
What you say, Ricky?
Yeah, that's true. I was going to say, the thing is that when we launched, we tried to make streaming easier, right? Which was that you didn't need an enterprise set of data engineers, developers, and so on. And I think we've done pretty well at that, and so have other companies as well. But now actually it's completely different. Now we need to make it easier for startups. Like, as in, it needs to be, I can vibe code, I can just go, I want an agent that can handle streaming data and do all these things. Right? Okay, that is still kind of out of reach. you're still into usually expensive pricing. There's still a setup kind of aspect to it, and you can get going quite quickly, but you don't know how to work with Kafka and other things like this in reality. And so there's, I think there's getting ahead of it. We talked about velocity, but there's also becoming agent first. So, our rebuild at the moment is making sure our APIs, everything are 100% parity with the UI, agent first, and an agent can do absolutely everything. You don't need to know anything about, because we run Kafka and Flink under the hood. You don't need to know anything about that. And a Claude will be able to just go, you want a streaming backend? Here, it's done. And so, I think there's velocity in terms of your roadmap, and there's also just getting ahead, allowing people to innovate on your product with no friction. I think that's what we're thinking about.
That'd be sick. Just Claude Code, and I could have a streaming app there, and that'd be cool. So I could check my shadows, my yard, like full time and in real time.
That's exactly what I'll be testing it for. That's how I'll know that Streamkap has built the streaming backend for agents.
Yeah, we what was I going to say about that? We were just talking this morning, like what would be a good demo of like an app that you would want to build on that. That's like, because I mentioned the we are actually building stuff for our internal, like at least initially internal support agent to help our engineers, resolve questions faster. But and I think that is a really good product area and something we'd love to expose to our customers as well. But it's not something that's like a great public demo because it's sort of inherently sensitive. So like just been brainstorming like what would be fun stuff that like you could just share publicly. So anyway,
I mean, it was interesting. Like I heard that a friend of mine who's on the ChatGPT team that released it, he told me that they didn't expect anyone to use it. And then it was, and I was like, well, what was the catalyst for it? Why did ChatGPT take off? And he's like, well, a big part was just college kids were taking TikToks of themselves using ChatGPT to cheat on homework. And that's one of the big reasons that people were like, oh yeah, that went viral. I mean, what college kid wouldn't want that, right? We've all been there, and it's like, that would have been a superpower. I can just look really smart, even though I'm a total dumbass. So
yeah,
the mistake was putting it on TikTok and then and realizing they just kept it to themselves and passed all the exams. Been like absolute genius.
I actually did see a post from a VC yesterday that was saying like there's sort of two modes of successful businesses today. Like one is you have a secret and you keep it. And like, I don't know, I think of like Renaissance Technology, it's like the most successful hedge fund ever. But so successful that they like stopped taking outside money. It's like they had like, a system for trading that worked so well that they like, but it had some cap on the like total assets they could manage. And at some point they like particularly, I guess Jim Simons, I think it is, and the founders were the ones, and his employees had so much personal wealth that like they took up all the assets that play could run, and so they just kept it a secret, and it continues. Jim Simons is
like 70% returns or something like that.
Yeah,
it was like
something insane. And so there's got to be people out there, in the AI world who have not necessarily stock trading, but like have the secret, and it's so good that they're not telling anyone else about it, right? Yeah. And then there's the people who obviously the things we hear about are the wild successes that like we made 100 million revenue in a year or whatever with level. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that was the dichotomy that this guy was articulating was there's the secrets, and then there's like the people who are making a big splash. And
it reminds me a lot of like the Donald Rumsfeld quote about like known knowns and known unknowns and unknown unknowns and stuff. So
yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't thought a lot about that, like the secret side of it. But I did think like, there's probably things that like, we will, or maybe we have it already, but that we'll know and like, that's a really good use for AI. And I'm not going to post that one on LinkedIn because like, I don't want other people to, to get that same advantage. So, yeah.
Speaking of which, so what is it like these days in terms of, getting attention as a company, getting distribution, and what seems like a very loud and noisy, environment and marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, mostly what we've done that's been most successful for us is, just talk about, at a fairly like, well, a combination of technical level, like, what we do, practical use cases. I mean, that's not rocket science, but it has worked pretty well for us. And then, I try and get out and meet people a lot in the real world as well. I think there's more value in that, because, it's there's so much sort of fake things out there that I think people appreciate, the real life. And I think we're seeing a bit more return to office, but still plenty of people working remotely. So I think people appreciate when they are in person and can connect with people. I think that like that's worked pretty well for us. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I think like general comment, I think like if you look at AI, like one of the big stories is that like PR is back. And that's like a big growth strategy for the like at least consumer facing or semi consumer facing AI businesses, is like you make a splash, and and then you've got great growth. You promote your growth, and use that as a positive feedback lever, right, to get more growth. That seems to be something that's like a big meta trend is is PR, and sometimes negative, sometimes positive, right? Like I don't know if you've seen like I don't know, the for me, I guess the canonical negative example is like Artisan, which is like an AI SDR company, and they like lean really hard into we're replacing humans, even if
Those billboards around San Francisco,
yeah,
especially.
uh,
Yeah.
with the specific intent, I think, to get people pissed off and get them
Oh
posting.
yeah. It's
And
brilliant.
it works.
Yeah.
Like they also got banned, I guess, briefly from LinkedIn for I think because they were automating LinkedIn stuff. But anyway, I'm sort of skeptical about that category, by the way. But nonetheless, like it certainly has been effective for them in like getting their name out there, and getting funding, if nothing else. So.
Oh yeah. What's it like, you guys? Because you're Ricky, you're in London, right, or thereabouts, or
Yeah.
yeah. And then Paul, you're in San Francisco, and these are not the same places when we're talking about AI or tech in general. Like, what are your conversations like when you sort of compare notes on what you're seeing in the wild?
Uh, that's a good question. I mean, I think we talk a lot, and so I think we stay fairly in sync on what we're seeing. But yeah, I think I'll I go to a lot of events here, and so I'm often sharing like kind of what we're seeing on the ground in San Francisco. But I don't know. We've been talking like Ricky might be starting to spend more time over here this coming year, but because there is value in, I think, us being closer, even though because we started out, I was in London, and so we were on the same page. Which I think London, by the way, has like one of the things that was great for us very early on is London has a really good like data practitioner community.
Mhm.
There's a number of really good recurring events, and so it's just a really good place to go out and meet people who are like doing the work, data engineering and analytics and what have you. Um, in a way that's very different from San Francisco. Like there's a lot of practitioners here, but they're all startup founders or building an AI platform or something. So that's obviously valuable and interesting, but it's definitely a different vibe. So but anyway, I moved over back here because we nonetheless feel pretty confident that the U.S. in general is a good market to focus on, and that being in San Francisco is important. Um, and yeah, I think now thinking maybe Ricky comes this way, now that
Nice.
we
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So we had a data company. I had a data company before this where Paul worked with me, and it was a sort of data dashboard, sort of full stack platform. And I met a guy off the board of Tableau, been on the Tableau board for 15 years or something like that, and he was Scottish, I think. And one of the first things he said was, "You need to get out of the UK." And he just meant from a sales point of view. There's so much talent, and there's great companies here as well, but it stuck with me. He said it's 10. I'm pretty sure he said this. It was 10 times harder to sell for a deal size 10 times smaller. And just that companies don't want to change. So we do have European and UK companies working with us, but I think we're like 99% US. And it's just different. It's just very, I mean, I'm British, so it's just very, very different, just much more open to change, do want to innovate, as there's clearly more money available, that sort of thing. So UK is just very cautious, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely night and day. So, which I mean, there's
Yeah.
something to be said for that too, right? It's like the businesses that tend to, well, some of them stick around longer. I don't know, but some don't.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's interesting, and yeah, I mean, Paul, you run help run a I think low key happy hour there in San Francisco, so
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been fun. I that was actually like I was inspired by Ethan Aaron, who kind of started it first in New York, but then I was going to the London low key data happy hour, which is one of the ones I was referring to of the great like kind of practitioner events in London that Chris Tabb runs. And when I moved back to San Francisco, I was missing it because, like I said, you can go to an event every night in San Francisco,
Oh, easy.
but it's much more like startup focused, and there weren't a lot of good or any really good like data practitioner kind of events. And so yeah, actually I when I first met Ethan in person was at Snowflake Summit in 24, I guess. And I was like, I think we need to start like a Snowflake, a low-key data happy hour in San Francisco. And he's like, you should meet this guy Tony, because I've been talking to him about the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Tony Fancher and I've been running that.
Small
So,
world. He used to be a client of mine, so it's like just how everything's sort of just in full circle.
yeah,
Like, Tony's and okay. Anyway, everyone knows each other.
everybody knows each other. Yeah, yeah. I was actually out last time I was out in Salt Lake. I was like meeting with a customer of ours who I think was also used to be a customer of your when you were at a couple. So, yeah,
a few of those here. So, that's super cool. Yeah, it feels like I think it's interesting. I'm thinking about go to market, especially in today's environment where there's the temptation to use AI. I think you made a comment on LinkedIn today about the types of posts people use and the verbiage they use and how it's kind of lame. So it's never been easier to create content, but I think it's actually way harder to stand out these days.
Yeah, and I've been thinking a lot about that because, yeah, I mean, look, I'm not that mad that people are using AI because like it's just gonna happen. Like I kind of accept that, but I was really irritated. I kept seeing this like it's not this, it's that pattern, and it's tough. Like I don't know. I guess my general thesis on that is like if it's actually useful, like then I don't think people care that much. If I go back to the AI SDR thing, I think one of the reasons that category hasn't really worked is like that the main thing that you're doing is you're just making slightly more personalized spam. And
Right.
I guess not to go too deep on that, but like they're I'm sure everyone who's been in a position of being a buyer has been on the recipient of this, and anybody who's been in sales has done this in the past 15 years. But like the sort of email automation stuff that B2B sales teams got enabled with in like the 2010s. It used to be that like they would have some templated thing, and it would just be blasting out to a bunch of people, and it wasn't tailored to those customers. And the way you would show to somebody that you were actually a human writing the email would you'd say like, hey, I saw you went to this university, or like I saw your company does streaming CDC, and that like meant that there was a human back there. And like now that is trivially easy to automate. And so I get tons of those emails myself, as I'm sure you do. And it's like, okay, you got to do something better than that, because like I know what I do, and I know that it's not hard for you to use AI to figure out what I do. So you need to tell me how you're going to add value. I mean, generally, I think email is just that much more dead as a cold outbound channel. I think newsletter is actually as you know better than I, like are actually is much more about like your audience and how do you curate that. I think is ultimately where we're going. I think you see that on the extreme end in the consumer world, where like if you're Ryan Reynolds, you could just start like a mobile phone thing because you have a built-in audience, and then you could sell it for $1 billion, and then you can do it again with the gin. I don't know the sequencing of those things, but he's like built two different like totally random businesses just based on the fact that he has an audience that he can monetize essentially. And that does seem like the pattern now, where you have like the not just founders, but like your general employees like need to be like building an audience. And I don't think it really works to have that just be AI automated, right? Like it has to have some authenticity and be valuable for the for your audience.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, cool, guys. I think that wraps it up. Is there anything else that you've been noodling on in your collective calls each day, your syncs?
I mean, we're one of our other big focuses is that something we're excited about, I guess I'd say, is that we're going to be live on the Snowflake marketplace soon with a native app. So
nice.
You can actually do streaming inside Snowflake with Streamkap. So not to shill too much, but that's something that we've got a lot of really good response from already, and that'll be sort of publicly available soon. So
that's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that ecosystem in Snowflake needs some work. I think the streaming part, it's I just never felt like it was getting there. Maybe it's starting to get there, but it just.
I think that partly I don't have a ton of history on it. Like we kind of just got into their accelerator last summer, and then started building this. But I think they changed a couple of things. So one is the way that like marketplace credits can be used. Like I don't know if I can share I don't know if they're public about the numbers, but basically like if you're a customer who has a committed like spend with Snowflake, you can now spend a bigger portion of that on marketplace products.
Okay. Cool.
I think they're kind of helping to incentivize the marketplace a bit more than maybe they used to. Because I do feel like when it first came out, it seemed like native apps would seem like a big opportunity. But maybe the timing was also bad. That was kind of like maybe late 21, early 22. And so like there was like that big modern data stack push, and it seemed like, well, maybe everybody's going to start to build on Snowflake. And then sort of the bottom fell out of the whole market, and maybe that took the winds out of the sail. But I think it's kind of coming back now to where like, they've got a good infrastructure. That is, Snowflake has a good infrastructure around that to make it attractive for everybody, right? Like it's great for their customers. It's good for Snowflake. It's good for the vendors who are there. So I think it's has a good potential.
That's super cool. That's a good ecosystem play. So well, awesome, guys. I'll have to have you back on again sometime soon, and we can see how the world's changed and
yeah.
And, so everything's happening at warp speed right now. So it's a fascinating time. So
and I think I'll see you in a couple weeks at Day-to-Day Texas, Joe. So
yes, sir. I'll be there. It's gonna be fun. Are you gonna be there too, Ricky?
The invite yet from Paul, so I think I'll be stuck vibe coding our app. So
I'll let Ricky can come out of the vibe coding.
I'll be coming over soon
when he's finished his 100 PRs. So
it should only take you about an hour to do that.
Yeah. Like I said, the backlog's more the engineers now checking my work. So but yeah, no, I'm not going to that, but I will be over in the US soon for quite a bit of time. So.
Oh, we'll have to meet up.
Yeah, see you soon. All right, great. Thanks a lot.
Right, see you all.
Thank you.
Bye.